Last summer, I moved to a small town. I thought I'd find peace as a freelance graphic designer. I was excited to explore my new neighborhood, so I decided to check out the yard sales. I'd always liked yard sales, and I thought it would be a good way to meet people. One sunny Saturday, I stepped outside. The air was warm, and birds chirped happily. Yard sale signs dotted the lawns, inviting me in. I wandered from one table to another, looking for hidden treasures. At one sale, an elderly woman caught my eye. She stood by a table filled with old dolls. Their eyes seemed to follow me as I approached. The woman whispered something about their stories. I tried to laugh it off, but my stomach twisted. I leaned in closer and asked her what stories she meant. Her smile was unsettling. I could see something in her eyes. Was it fear or just too many memories? I moved on quickly, shaking off the feeling. After that, I visited more sales, but each meeting felt stranger. One weekend, I found a different sale. An older man had a dusty mirror for sale. I looked into it and saw my reflection, but then I caught another glimpse behind me, a dim room filled with shadows. I blinked, and my face was back. I turned away, brushing it off. My mind was just playing tricks on me, I thought. At another sale, a little girl approached me, holding a music box. She insisted I take it. The moment I touched it, a haunting melody played. Chills ran down my spine. The child looked serious. "You shouldn't," she warned. I stammered my thanks and placed it back on the table. She frowned and repeated her warning. I felt confused but also uneasy. Why this time? I thought it was all in my head. Maybe I was just getting too worked up about the new town. Yet, that knot in my stomach wouldn't go away. Then I found one last yard sale that stood out. An old lady cracked jokes with her friends as I approached. I picked up an antique clock. Something about it felt wrong. The laughter stopped. Everyone stared at me. My heart raced. I backed away, feeling lost. Then I heard a whisper from behind me. "What are you doing here?" I turned around, but nobody was there. The hairs on my neck stood up. I hurried away. Now, every yard sale makes me uneasy. I can't stop thinking about that old woman and her dolls. I wonder if there's something bigger connecting these encounters. Was I just paranoid? Or maybe I messed up by ignoring the signs? I don't have answers, but that feeling won't let me rest. What if those encounters served as warnings, keeping me away from something I couldn't even see? Each yard sale twists my thoughts into deeper fear, and I can't shake the feeling that it might be too late. The next weekend, I decided to break my pattern. I needed to figure out what was going on in this town. Maybe I just needed to face it head on. So, I picked up my things and headed out to the yard sales once more. The air felt different this time, heavy and thick, almost suffocating. I shook off the weirdness and followed the signs. My first stop was a bright yellow house, the yard filled with mismatched furniture and trinkets. A woman waved me over with a warm smile. "Come on in. I have some great deals." I hesitated but stepped toward her table. There were old records, dusty books, and an odd collection of figurines. I picked up one of the figurines, a small cat with piercing blue eyes. Something about it made my heart race. I set it back down and walked away. As I moved to the next table, I heard laughter nearby. It was the same group of older women I had seen last week, but they seemed different today, more animated. I could hear snippets of their conversation. They spoke in low tones about someone named Ella. My curiosity piqued. Who was Ella? Then I stood at a booth with an assortment of old tools. I picked up a rusty wrench, its surface cold against my palm. Just as I turned it over, a chill ran through me. A shadow moved behind me. I spun around quickly. No one was there. I laughed nervously. Clearly, I was imagining things again. That I decided to press on. The last table caught my eye. It was covered in vintage jewelry, sparkling in the sunlight. A small music box sat in the corner, just like the one the girl had warned me about. I shuddered at the memory. As I approached, the deep sound of laughter echoed around me once more. The women were closer now, their eyes fixed on me. One of them smiled wide. "What are you looking for?" she asked, almost too eagerly that I took a step back, searching for an escape. My heart raced, fleeing the scene. They started whispering among themselves. "She shouldn't have come here," one of them said. The word sent a cold shiver down my spine. I turned and hurried away, desperate to put distance between myself and their strange energy. As I walked back, the unease swelled again. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something crucial. I was doing my best to stay calm, but the shadows felt thicker now, darker than usual. I rushed to my car, but just before I got in, I caught a glimpse of the cat figurine from earlier, standing proudly on the table. That's when I saw it. The figurine wasn't just a cat, it had a small, intricate design on its collar. I squinted at it, trying to make sense of the pattern. It was a repeating shape, something I'd seen before. My pulse quickened as realization dawned on me that I whipped around to check if the women were still there. They were watching me, their faces painted with an eerie familiarity, as if waiting for my next move. Panic surged through me. Had I stumbled onto something I shouldn't have? I got in my car and locked the doors. Breathless, I stared at the figurine one last time. Maybe it was a clue? I had to find out. But I felt deep inside that this search could lead me into darker waters. The deeper I dug, the more uncertain I became. What had I uncovered? Soon, I'd get my answer. I spent the rest of the day trying to distract myself, but my thoughts kept circling back to the cat figurine and the women. Ella. Why had they whispered her name? I needed more information, and the only way to get it was to confront the nightmare I seemed to be waking up in. The next weekend came, and once again, the yard sales called to me. I parked near the bright yellow house, the one that had felt so inviting before. This time, I felt a heaviness in my chest. What if the women were waiting for me? I shook my head. I wouldn't let fear dictate my actions. As I walked towards the yard, my steps felt cautious. The same woman stood behind her table, a warm smile plastered across her face. "Back for more?" she asked. I nodded weakly, scanning the area for any signs of the group of women. The tables looked almost identical to how I remembered them. The cat figurine wasn't there, but something else caught my eye. A delicate necklace lay among the jewelry, featuring a small charm that matched the intricate design I had seen on the cat's collar. My heart raced again. Why were these two items connected? "Is this charm special?" I asked, trying to sound casual. The woman's smile faded for a split second, before a flicker of something like recognition crossed her face. "Oh, that's just a trinket. People love it, though." I picked it up and examined it closely. The same pattern was etched into its surface. I couldn't shake off the feeling that it had to mean something. But instead of clarity, a wave of dread washed over me. "It's not just a trinket, is it?" I pressed. "You know more than you're letting on." Suddenly, the laughter burst forth from a nearby table. My stomach dropped. The older women were back, clustered just out of view, but their eyes were fixed on me again. I felt exposed. They were waiting. They were all just waiting, ignoring the urgency that prickled at my mind. I made a beeline for my car, the charm still clutched in my hand. I couldn't leave without understanding this puzzle. As I fumbled with my keys, the chatter of the women grew louder, echoing against the thickening air. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw them start to approach. Their eyes gleamed like they were in on some terrible secret. I stumbled back against my car and finally managed to fumble the door open. As I slammed it shut and locked the doors, one of the women stepped closer, the crowd of them forming a wall. You should have listened, she called out, her tone light yet ominously serious. You were warned. Ella has a way of drawing people in. My heart pounded. Ella. There it was again. I had to know who she was. What did they mean by drawing people in? It felt like a trap, and yet I was standing there, paralyzed by a mix of fear and an urgent need for answers. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, my breath hitching. A text from an unknown number: if you want to find out about Ella, come to the old mill tonight. Don't bring anyone. What had I gotten myself into? I glanced at the women. They watched me, eager smiles contrasting against the dread rising in my chest. I knew I had to decide. Were they right about me? Had I crossed a line I couldn't uncross? The night was looming, and whatever was waiting for me at the mill felt darker and more sinister than anything I'd come across so far. I had to go. I parked my car at the edge of the old mill's lot, the sunlight slipping away behind the trees, casting long shadows that danced over the cracked pavement. My pulse raced as the reality of the situation settled in. I had come here alone, just as the text instructed. The last traces of daylight faded, and dread pooled in my gut that I hesitated at the entrance, the structure looming before me like an ancient guardian holding its secrets tight. The peeling paint and broken windows only added to the feeling that something dark lingered within. I could turn back. But curiosity had already sunk its claws into me. I had to know what Ella was. As I stepped inside, the air was cooler, heavy with the scent of damp wood and mildew. Shadows moved in the corners, and I felt the weight of the dark. Hello? I called out, my voice echoing against the wooden beams. No answer. I took a cautious step forward, flipping my phone's flashlight on to cut through the gloom. It illuminated dust motes swirling in the air, reminding me of the light filtering through the yard sale's tables. The charm in my pocket felt warm against my leg, a dull reminder of the connection I was still trying to unravel. Then I saw it. In the center of the main room, a circle of faint, flickering candlelight glowed, casting eerie patterns on the walls. My breath hitched, and I approached, each step feeling heavier than the last. At the edge of the circle, a group of small objects caught my eye: old photographs laid out among the candles, faces peering out from the darkness. I leaned in, and a chill crept up my spine. One photo was of the same cat figurine I had seen weeks ago, the other showed a group of women, smiling in some forgotten moment. Ella was in the picture. I recognized her. She looked exactly like the woman from the yard sale, but younger. Her eyes sparkled with life. Why do you want to know about Ella? A voice suddenly broke through the silence, pulling me back to reality. I jumped, spinning around to see one of the older women from the yard sale standing just outside the light of the candles, her face cast in shadow. What are you doing here? I stammered, heart racing. What is all this? She stepped closer, now partially lit by the candlelight. Ella is not what you think. She takes something from those who come seeking her. Her voice was low, almost gentle. You've been drawn in, just like the others. Drawn in? I repeated, confusion and fear vying for control. What does that even mean? The woman paused, a smirk playing on her lips. It's easier to show you. And before I could react, she gestured, and the room seemed to pulse. The candle flames flickered violently, distorting shadows that danced along the walls. That's when I saw it. The flickering light seemed to shift like a curtain, revealing something behind it. A figure materialized, slowly stepping into view. My breath caught in my throat. It was Ella. Yet, she seemed different. Her expression was cold and almost predatory, eyes glinting like shards of broken glass. Welcome, she said, voice dripping with sweetness yet laced with something more sinister. I've been waiting. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding. Something felt terribly wrong. I hadn't crossed just a line, I had walked into something dark and unexplainable. The room started to close in around me as the realization hit. I had to escape. I turned to run, but the exit felt miles away. The women were blocking the way, their smiles replaced with predatory grins. I was trapped, and they wanted something from me. I just didn't know what. I turned on my heel and dashed toward the far end of the room, frantically searching for a way out. The candlelight flickered ominously as I glanced back, and Ella's eyes followed me, gleaming with anticipation. The older woman I'd spoken to was moving, too, inching closer with each step. "Don't you want to know the truth?" she taunted, her voice echoing in the cramped space. "You found the charm, didn't you? You can't just leave it behind." The air felt electric, thick with tension. I reached the wall, but it was just a dead end. Panic took hold of me, squeezing my throat. Behind me, Ella laughed, an eerie sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Why are you doing this?" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. My breath came in rapid bursts. The older woman stepped closer, her face almost touching the circle of light. "Because you have a choice to make. Everyone does when they come here." "What choice?" I racked my brain, desperate to understand. Memory of the charm fluttered through my thoughts. I remembered feeling its warmth earlier, like it was alive, but what did it want? "Ella was once like you," the woman continued, the shadows swallowing her features. "Curious, innocent. But she accepted the gift we offered." "Gift?" I interrupted, the word tasting bitter. "What do you mean?" Ella smiled, her fangs flashing in the candlelight. "I offer gifts of knowledge, of power. But each gift requires a price." The horror of what they were suggesting sank in. This wasn't just about me getting answers. They wanted something deeper, something far more sinister. The photo of the smiling women came back to me, etched with mirth and oblivion. "What do you take?" I pressed, my voice trembling. "Your memories," Ella chimed sweetly. "All those beautiful moments you cling to, they can all be mine. And in exchange, you'll be part of something greater." I looked between them, wild desperation swirling inside me. They were waiting for my answer. My mind raced back to the stories I'd heard about lost souls, sacrifices made in the name of curiosity. My heart dropped. "Don't you want to remember your family?" The older woman stepped closer, increasing the unbearable weight of her gaze. "The love, the joys? You can still keep them if you say yes." Before I could respond, something in the shadows shifted. A low, guttural growl filled the air, cutting through the tension like a knife. I turned to see a darkness darker than any shadow rise behind Ella, taking shape. A creature emerged, all claws and teeth, staring at me with hunger. That I stumbled back, instinct kicking in, but I knew I couldn't go back to either woman. "Let me go!" I screamed. They began to advance, the glow of the candles faltering against the encroaching dark. I had no idea what would happen if I accepted their offer, but facing that unknown terror seemed like the only way to escape. "Choose now," Ella commanded, her voice sharp like a blade. I was running out of time, and I needed to act. I had to make a decision, before the creature could make one for me. Inside my mind, chaos churned. The creature's growl reverberated through my chest, mixing fear with desperation. I threw one last glance at Ella and the older woman, their expressions a blend of anticipation and dark excitement. Suddenly, instinct took over. I couldn't trust them. Not with my memories, not with my life. I took a step back, scanning the wall for anything, any crack, any window. The creature lunged forward, its breath hot and foul, and I barely dodged its swipe. In my frantic search for an escape, I noticed something small on the floor, an old, rusted key, half buried under dust and grime. I grabbed it, the cold metal grounding me. It felt like a lifeline. "Enough games!" I yelled, gripping the key tightly. "If you want me to choose, I choose my freedom." With a burst of adrenaline, I turned and bolted to the wall, seeking any lock that might fit the key. The women hissed in frustration, their faces twisting with rage. I could sense the creature growing restless, ready to pounce again. "Join us!" Ella screamed, her voice cracking as she eyed my makeshift weapon. "You cannot escape your fate. Watch me." I shot back, slamming against the wall again in search of a way out. The room was closing in, and the shadows were growing thicker. Just then, I spotted a faint outline of a door hidden behind an old tapestry. My heart raced. I sprinted toward it, hoping against hope that the key would work. I could hear the creature's claws skittering on the floor behind me, faster than before. I reached the door and thrust the key into the lock. It resisted for a heartbeat, and I could feel Ella and the woman closing in. I twisted the key with all my might, and the lock clicked open. The door creaked as I pushed it, a blinding light spilling into the dark room. "Don't you dare!" The older woman shrieked as I threw myself through the opening, slamming the door behind me. I landed in a narrow corridor, the dim light flickering above. The air felt different here, less oppressive and more vibrant, as if it still held a trace of freedom. But I knew they wouldn't let me go easily. Hearing heavy footsteps echoing behind me, I quickly scrambled to my feet. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, branches of doors leading in every direction. I didn't know which one to choose, but I couldn't linger. Then I heard it, a faint whisper. This way. It was soft and beckoning, but I had no choice. I couldn't afford to hesitate. Navigating the maze of exits and turns, I followed the voice, each step quickening my pulse, but just as I rounded a corner, I was met with an unexpected sight. A mirror stood there, tall and ornate, reflecting the interior of the corridor, but the mirror had its own secrets. I could see Ella and the older woman just behind me, their eyes blazing with fury. I caught my breath, thinking this was my chance. I had to find out what they didn't want me to see. I stepped closer to the mirror, trying to discern what lay beyond the surface. When I saw it. Flashes of images in the reflection, memories of my childhood, laughter, warmth but twisted. Each face had a shadow lurking behind it. I froze. What did this mean? And why were my memories being used against me? Just then, the whispering intensified, urging me to reach out. But I hesitated. I had to choose again. Trust the mirror or keep running. I took a deep breath, the whispers drawing me closer. "Not yet," I muttered to myself. I could feel the heat of frustration radiating from the women behind me, but the mirror captivated me. It felt like a decision point. Would the truth help me escape or trap me further? Suddenly, the voices faded, replaced by a sound that made my blood run cold. The scuffling footsteps of the creature were growing nearer. I could imagine its claws skimming closer to its next prey. I glanced back, my heart racing, and saw the flickering shadows of Ella and the older woman lose their form against the light of the golden door. Just then, the mirror shone brighter, illuminating the corridor with fractured light. The images inside it shifted again, showcasing a moment from my life I thought had been long buried. I saw a picnic in a sunny park, my mother smiling, her laughter ringing clear. But beside her was a figure I couldn't quite make out, blurred at the edges like a bad memory. Anger flared within me. Was this their doing? Were they manipulating my past to ensnare me? "Stop!" I shouted, taking a step back from the mirror. I couldn't let them twist my memories and turn my weakness into their advantage. But as I stumbled, I lost my balance, wobbling dangerously close to the shimmering surface. The reflection morphed, and the blurred figure transformed into something sinister. For a split second, I saw its glaring eyes fixed on me. The feeling of dread washed over me. This was more than a mere trick, it was a warning. Still, I couldn't just run away. With each second, the creature's approach echoed louder in my ears. I was running out of time. I needed to decide that I had to pull myself together. I clenched my hands, thinking. I could either flee down the darkened corridor, leaving the whisper and the mirror behind, or I could summon the courage to confront what I saw inside. There were secrets there, and they might hold the key to breaking whatever hold Ella and the older woman had over me. In that moment, urgency surged through me. I dashed forward and pressed my palm against the cool surface of the mirror, staring into my own eyes. The faces of my past were fading, replaced by the shadowy figure, now looming closer. As I pressed against the mirror, a force pulled me in. The whisper became a scream. Then everything changed. The mirror shattered, sending shards of glass flying in all directions, each fragment revealing flashes of my life, moments I had long forgotten, moments intertwined with danger. I staggered back, eyes wide, waiting for something to happen, worrying that I had just made a grave mistake. My breath caught as the corridor darkened, the air thick with an impending storm. Then I heard it. The creature's growl was louder now, more ferocious, sounding almost like laughter as it neared. I mustered all my strength, preparing to fight or flee, knowing that whatever came next would force me to confront my past, and maybe, just maybe, my future. But before I could react, everything went black. I woke up gasping, the taste of fear sour in my mouth. My heart raced, pounding against my chest like a wild animal trying to escape. The darkness pressed in around me, suffocating, but I quickly realized I wasn't alone. A faint whisper in the distance made the hairs on my neck stand up. "Help us!" I blinked against the shadows, trying to catch my breath. The ground beneath me felt cold and hard. I was lying on a stone floor, and the air was heavy, thick with the scent of dampness and decay. I pushed myself up, the echoes of that whisper still swirling in my mind. I had to move. As I stood, the flickering light of a few candles caught my attention. They cast elongated shadows that danced along the walls, hinting at a passageway leading deeper into the darkness. I hesitated, unsure of which direction to take. Behind me, the growl echoed again, sending a shiver down my spine. I couldn't go back. I hurried toward the candles, focusing on their light. Maybe it would lead me to safety, or at least away from that beast. But as I approached, the whispers grew louder, almost desperate. "Help us, please." I turned my head, trying to pinpoint the source. My mind raced, connecting the whispers to the intricate pattern of my past. Had I heard those voices before? Had I once known who they were? Pushing the questions aside for now, I edged forward cautiously. Each step stirred the dust on the stone floor. Suddenly, a glint of something caught my eye among the shadows, a small mirror shard lying half buried in the rubble. It shimmered with a light of its own. Curiosity pulled me closer. This piece felt like a key to something I had lost. I crouched down to pick it up, feeling a rush of energy as I held it in my palm. For a brief moment, I saw flashes of what I had looked into before the picnic, my mother, the blurred figure. But then the vision sharpened. I saw that figure clearer now. It was a woman, panic in her eyes, struggling against something. "Who is she?" I whispered to the shard, wishing it could answer, but the voices transformed into a chorus of cries, swirling louder. "Help us! We need to break free!" Then a loud crash echoed from behind me, shaking the ground. The creature was closer now, and I felt the thrum of fear deep in my bones. I took a step back, heart racing. The candlelight flickered erratically as if the very shadows were alive, shifting ominously. My grip tightened around the shard as I realized the truth. I wasn't just in danger, I was part of something much bigger, something that connected my present to my past in a way I hadn't yet understood. Suddenly, I heard movement. Someone was approaching. Panic surged within me as I sensed another presence in the dark. "Who's there?" I shouted, struggling to keep my voice steady, but there was no answer, only the sound of soft footsteps slowly creeping closer. I had to act fast. The answer lay ahead or perhaps behind me, but there was no time to ponder. I dashed into the passageway, clutching the shard tightly. Whatever awaited me would come. I had to know what I uncovered, even if it meant facing my fears and the secrets they guarded. The passageway was narrow, the walls pressing in on me with every hurried step. A chill crept up my spine as I glanced back. I could still hear the creature crashing through the darkness behind me. I picked up my pace, my breath quickening. As I moved deeper into the darkness, I realized I needed to be more careful. The rough stone floor was uneven, and I stumbled once, catching myself before I fell. The shard in my hand felt warm, pulsing with an energy that was almost alive. It drew me forward, almost as if it knew where I needed to go. Just a bit further, I murmured to myself, desperate for some semblance of hope. In the dim light, I saw another pool of flickering candlelight up ahead. I dashed toward it, hoping to find some escape or answers. But as I reached the edge of the light, I stopped short. Before me was another room, larger and filled with broken furniture, but what caught my eye was the figure hunched in the corner. A woman, her hair wild and tangled, gazed up at me with wide eyes, filled with panic. She looked just like the figure I'd seen in the shard. "Help me," she rasped, her voice hoarse. "They're coming for me." I stepped closer, absorbing the frantic energy that clung to her. "Who? What happened?" My voice was barely above a whisper, afraid that speaking too loudly would summon whatever was lurking in the shadows, but she didn't answer. Instead, she pointed behind me, her face twisting in terror. I spun around just in time to see a dark shadow sweeping through the entrance, creeping closer. The growls now morphed into a low snarl, and my heart dropped. Before I could think, I turned back to the woman. "What do we do? We need to get out of here." "Use it!" she shouted, her eyes darting to the shard in my hand. "It's your only chance." The darkness advanced, and I felt the air grow heavy, suffocating. Panic surged through me as I grasped the shard tightly. I focused on it, trying to remember what I had seen: the picnic, my mother, the woman. The warmth radiated between my fingers, illuminating my surroundings in a soft glow. As the creature loomed closer, I saw the truth flash inside the shard. It wasn't just a piece of glass, it was a window to another reality. It held the power to reveal things hidden, truths buried in shadows. "Show me!" I screamed, willing the shard to illuminate the darkness. I felt a rush of energy, a connection that tied me to the woman and the old memories. Just then, the shadowy beast lunged toward us, its growl echoing through the chamber. I held up the shard, and a beam of light shot forth, illuminating the room in a blinding flash, but then, everything went dark. The light snuffed out, leaving only silence and the creeping dread of the unknown. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, and I sensed the presence of something lurking just beyond my vision. "Please," the woman pleaded, her voice trembling as fear gripped my heart. "We have to keep going before it finds us." But in that pitch-black void, all I could feel was the threat closing in. I had discovered something important, yet somehow the stakes had risen higher. I wasn't just running anymore. I was fighting for our survival, and then, I felt it. Something brushed against my leg, sending a jolt of terror through me. I turned, ready to confront whatever awaited in the darkness. I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew I had to face it head-on. The darkness around me pulsed with a life of its own, and as I swallowed the rising fear, I gripped the shard tighter. My heart was a drumbeat of adrenaline, and that whispering urgency echoed in my mind, "Help us." With a deep breath, I focused on the shard, its warmth blooming against my palm. It shimmered faintly, illuminating the encroaching darkness just enough for me to see the wild-eyed woman still crouched in the corner. "We need to go," I urged, my voice shaking. "But how? What do we do?" The woman shook her head, her expression a blend of desperation and determination. "Trust it," she said, her eyes locked onto the glowing shard. "It holds your memories, your strength. Let it guide you." Just then, the growl returned, deep and omnipresent, as if the shadows themselves were summoning that beast to hunt us. I felt the air thicken, and the pressure of the darkness bore down on me. With no time to waste, I raised the shard, calling upon all the strength and courage I could muster. "Show us the way." The shard pulsed brightly in response, and oddly, I felt a shift within me, as though the memories I'd stumbled upon were bursting to the surface. Images flickered my childhood home, moments of laughter shared with family, the warmth of sunlit mornings. Each image fueled the light from the shard, empowering me even more. The snarling continued, closer now, and panic surged again. I could remember, oh how vividly, the warmth and joy of those memories, the bonds created through love even if shadows lingered in them. I was done running. I was ready to confront whatever darkness lay ahead of me. The chamber shivered around us just as a guttural roar erupted from the shadows. Instinctively, I swung the shard around, letting the light bounce off the walls, illuminating every corner. Then it happened. The beast lunged forward, a mass of snarling fangs and twisted limbs, but I was ready. I thrust the shard into the rampaging shadows, unleashing a burst of brilliant light that spilled through the dark like a wave, illuminating the room. The creature staggered back, howling in alarm as the light pushed it further into the corners. I felt the force of the darkness begin to recede, overwhelmed by the counterforce rising from the shard and fueled by the memories surrounding me. Now! I barked, motioning to the woman to follow. She caught the light-esque glow in her eyes and sprang into action, darting behind me as I led the way through the chamber, the path becoming clearer with each step. The chamber began to shift. Walls that had felt dense and menacing suddenly seemed to melt away into the distance, revealing another doorway ahead bathed in soft, beckoning light. But the snarling escalated, and I felt the dark presence still lurking, determined to reclaim its prey. "Look!" I yelled, pointing toward the door. "That has to be our way out." The darkness rallied one last time, a soul-chilling roar reverberating off the walls. I hesitated, uncertainty threatening to overwhelm me again. But in that moment, I felt the warmth of the shard in my palm momentarily extinguish the shadows. My mind drifted to the memories I had touched, and I remembered, they weren't just moments from my past, they were the essence of who I was. No more. I shouted defiantly, determination surging through me. I sprinted toward the glowing doorway, the woman matching my pace. "We're not your darkness to claim." The energy around us crackled, and as I approached the door, I pivoted and held the shard out. The creature lunged again, desperate to draw me back, but its snarls turned to cries of rage as the light from the shard engulfed it, illuminating deep scars hidden in the dark. In that instant, I felt a tearing sensation. The creature howled and vanished in a flash of shadow, and we lunged through the doorway together, bursting into the brilliance of a sunlit field. Gasping, I brought my hands down from my eyes to glimpse the world around me, fresh air, warm sunlight, and the hum of life all around. I turned to see the woman beside me, her face lit with disbelief, as we both took in the unexpected freedom we had fought for. "So we made it," I breathed, still in shock, but even as relief washed over me, a lingering question gnawed at my mind. What had we truly escaped? I glanced back at the doorway, shadows still flickering at its edges, a constant reminder that darkness refused to be extinguished. The woman caught my gaze, her expression hinting at unasked questions. "Ella, they're still there, aren't they? The others?" I nodded slowly, uncertainty washing over me. Somewhere, the whispers still lingered, and I could feel the past trying to reclaim what it had lost. "I don't know what happens next," I admitted. "But I can't turn away now. I have to find out more about Ella. There's so much left unsaid." She looked back at the doorway, shadows weaving into unnatural shapes. "Are we ready for that?" "I don't know," I replied softly, gripping the shard tightly in my palm. It pulsed gently, a reminder of what tied me to my past and the journey still before us. As I turned to walk into the sunlight, uncertain yet unyielding, I felt a flicker of hope amid the lingering threads of darkness. I might have escaped the immediate danger, but the shadows were never far away. The answers lay out there, waiting to be uncovered. And for now, that was enough.